So today is January 17th, 2009, and tonight we are hosting some of our industry neighbors and friends for a little dinner at our winery guest house here in St. Helena. And we decided to prepare a lasagna al forno. So it's a very rich dish, and we're making it today with homemade pasta and a slow simmered bolognese sauce that it was made from hand cut chuck, which I worked on yesterday for about 2 hours, of chopping. You can do your vegetables in the food processor and buy ground beef if you don't want to do that, but it really does make a difference. So what I'm doing now is just rolling out the last of our pasta dough. So I made this at home from egg and flour. I used a good quality unbleached all-purpose flour and organic eggs. I made it in my KitchenAid, but you can use a food processor. You can also do it by hand. So we're just going to start with our hand crank pasta machine on the lowest numbered setting and get this going, get it flattened out. As we go, we'll want to dust it with flour. Unfortunately, if you're making homemade pasta, it's just sort of a messy thing to do. There really isn't a way to do it without getting flour all over your kitchen, and you just sort of have to give into that. Clean up as you go as best you can, and then just sort of attack your kitchen at the end. So we gradually work our way down the settings here. I'm on 2 now, and then I'll switch to 3 and so on. And every time it goes through the roller, it gets a little bit thinner. And this is just a stainless steel pasta roller and cutter that you can get at any good kitchen supply store. Costs about $100, and it's a great investment. My grandmother used to do this with a wooden stick. She would roll out the dough and then flip it on the stick, and every time it flipped, it would get a little bit thinner just through the action of being flung and sort of stretched out. Okay, so the thing you want to watch for is when your pasta sheet gets a little long, it's a good idea to cut it in the middle, because if you don't, it can kind of fold back on itself and stick. So during the break, we were joined by Martin Reyes from the St. Helena Wine Center, who will also be dining with us tonight. And in fact, he's in charge of dessert. Why don't you tell everyone what you're making for dessert tonight?
I will. I'll be happy to. I have actually possibly 2, but at least 1 dessert. And what it is basically a chocolate, inverse chocolate caramel flan-style dessert that my mother made.
That sounds very good.
Yeah, recipe that my mom had. And it's caramel, chocolate, and a little bit of port sauce mixed with blueberry jam. And yeah, that's about it. And then if I have time, I'll make some caramel glazed oranges, but we'll see if we get to that.
So meanwhile, I've run this through to number 8, and I think it's thin enough. My machine goes to 9, but really you have to kind of know how to make the noodle that's appropriate for whatever dish you're making. So I'm going to stop at 8. And then you need to kind of let it dry in such a way that it's not going to, again, stick to itself. So you can use one of those racks for air drying your hand washables, or if you have a lot of kitchen chairs in the kitchen, that's what we've used here today. Also, you can lay, like if you're making linguine, you can lay noodles out on towels on the table. That also works very well. Martin has to go back to work now, so we'll say goodbye to him, and we'll see you in a few hours.
See you in a few hours.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that dessert.
I am too.
Okay.
You have no idea.
I've got noodles all over me here. Okay, bye now. Noodles that have been drying on our chair racks we started making this pasta, I guess, about an hour and a half ago. So these have had some time to dry out. I'm just going to cut them down to a size that'll be manageable, both in the pot and then eventually in the lasagna pan when we go to assemble the lasagna. So I'll just cut these down. Okay, so we have our beautiful sheets of homemade dough here, which are going to be our lasagna noodles. And we just have cut them down to a size that's appropriate for the pot that we're using. We have a gigantic pot here. Just want to keep that in mind at home. So we'll go ahead and we'll put some of them in the water and cook them. You don't need to cook them to doneness. You just want to sort of get them going because they will cook in the lasagna as well. I'm not really, some people don't cook their lasagna noodles at all prior to assembling lasagna, and I'm not a big fan of that. I've had sort of mixed results, you know, with portions of the noodle that maybe weren't completely covered in sauce coming out sort of crunchy and tough. So I like to at least soften them up in some water. These are just about ready. And then we can assemble the lasagna. Okay, so I've cooked the noodles about halfway, sort of par cooked them. And now I'm going to run some cold water on them to stop the cooking and also help them to just kind of be easier to handle. They're quite hot right now. So we've cooked and drained our noodles, and I've laid a layer of them out in our lasagna pan, which I just placed over a little bit of the bolognese sauce, and that's just to kind of help it not stick. So we'll start by ladling on some more of the bolognese sauce. So again, this is chopped chuck, along with a mirepoix of carrot, celery, and onion. And you brown all of the meat and vegetables, and then slow cook it in a mixture of tomato, wine, and milk, and season it with a little bit of nutmeg and salt. And it slow cooks for 3 hours. The milk and wine help to tenderize the meat, and so essentially it's a braise. Bolognese sauce is a braise, because we're browning meat and vegetables and then cooking them in a liquid. And that's really what braising is. Okay, so we've got a nice layer of meat on the lasagna here. And the next thing that we'll put on in the dish is some bechamel sauce. So bechamel is one of the classical French sauces, and it's made by adding milk to a roux and then cooking it for about 20 minutes. And I'm just going to use the same spoon. The nice thing about lasagna is it's very forgiving. And we'll ladle on the bechamel. And this, when the cheese melts, this makes a lovely sort of cheese sauce in the lasagna, even though I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but cheese isn't really traditional in a lasagna bolognese. I like it though. So now we'll add our cheese. This is a mixture of double cream Gouda and some fontina. Those are not traditional lasagna cheeses, but again, I use them because they melt very nicely and they're also quite flavorful. And we'll do another layer of noodles. And I'll trim the excess because that would have a tendency to dry out in the oven. So I'll just grab my chef's knife here and trim it. Okay, so the last step is to set this up to have a lovely sort of gratin topping on the top. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my remaining bolognese sauce, or actually all of my remaining bolognese sauce, but not too much sauce is the point, and just kind of spread it over the top along with some of this bechamel, actually a good dose of bechamel. And then on top of that, we'll grate some Parmesan cheese. And then these bake in the oven for about 40 minutes. And then you just let it set, sort of let the cheese and the bechamel and everything sort of gel back together very briefly for about 5 minutes, and then you can serve them. And that's it. So we'll see you at dinner time.